Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Like I've always been saying for the past, 3 months, it is very imperative for us to understand how our democracy is working. It is very important for us to understand how our parliament is working, how our debates are happening, how our bills are getting passed, and how our economy is working. If somebody tells you that our economy is not doing well, we need to know why is it not doing well. And if somebody is telling you that the economy is flourishing, we need to know and judge for ourselves as to why is our economy flourishing. So I am going to talk to you about different topics that concerns parliament, that concerns bills, that concerns acts, that concerns economy. I'm going to talk about that. And today I'm going to talk about labor participation rate, LPR as it is called. Labor participation rate, why today? Is because there is a CMI report. CMI is a Center of Monitoring Indian Economy. Okay, there is a CMI report that talks about LPR, that is labor participative rate. And I'm going to talk about that particular report, and I'm going to talk to you about why labor participation is so important to our economy and our country. Let's get right into the show. So labor force participation rate. Now first let us understand what is it meaning. Okay, so the definition is, according to International Labour Organization, the labor force participation rate is the measure of the proportion of a country's working age population that engages actively in labor market, either by working or by looking for work. It provides an indication of the size of the supply of labor available to engage in production of goods and services relative to the population of the working age. Now, this is what the definition is. What does it mean? Simple. It means that it gauges the number of people in a given economy. It gauges a number of people who are either actively looking for work or they are already employed. Which means what? Which means that you come to know in an economy that by how many people are ready to work. Which means what? Which means you come to know what is the labor strength of that economy. You know, once upon a time, this labor force was also called as economically active population. This was what they formerly called as economically active population. Matlab kya? Ki this particular force actively participates in the growth of the economy. Now, what happens if the rate of LPR is down, if the rate of LPR is lower? What happens? The labor force there doesn't have a job and is not actively looking for a job either. So they are doing nothing. Which means they are a strain on the economy. We all know what are the two major important things for production is. One is capital and one is labor force, resources. So if the labor force is less in a capital, and that to a country like ours, where our population is 130 crores, where our youth population is possibly one of the highest in the world, if we say that our labor participation rate is less, then there is a problem. There is a problem to our economy. And that's the point. Now, I spoke to you about a report that CMI, that is Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, had come out with. And in CMI, in this report, they say that March 2017, the labor participation rate was 46.98. March 2018, the labor participation rate came down to 44.58%. March 2019, the labor participation rate went down further to 43.7%. March 20 came down further to 70. In fact, it went up by 43.76%. March 2021 came down again to 41.38%. Quarter ended June 21, the rate was 39.98%, September 40.51%, and now, that is last to last month, October 2021, it was 40.41%, and November 2021, it went down further to 40.15%. So it went down from March 31st, which was March 31st, 2021, which was 41.38% to 40.15% in November 2021. What does this mean? What does this mean? This means that our labor force, our economically active force, economically active population is reduced. Our LPR rates is possibly one of the worst in the world. It is one of the worst in the world. Now, let me give you some figures. According to an article of Mahesh Vyas, who heads CMI, he says that India's LPR is much lower than global levels. According to the World Bank, the modeled ILO estimate of the world in 2020 was 58.6%, and the same model places India's LPR at 46%. So our labor participation rate is lesser than the world average. Acha. Now let us come to the $1 million question. Kaisa hota kyun hai? Why does it happen? Let us understand this. In fact, another very interesting article written in the Wire, that one of the reasons cited for low LPR is the employment rate amongst women is abysmally low, especially in big Hindi belts states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. LPR among women here is in single digits, which means that 90% of women are out of the labor market altogether. How can an economy prosper with 90% of women out of the labor market? Now, 90% of women are not working. Obviously, it is going to have impact on the labor force. Now, what happens if the women are not working? If 90% of the women are not working, which means it's going to have more strain on the economy. Like I told you, capital and labor. If the labor is not there, the economy is not going to grow. So this particular force which is unemployed, which is not looking for work, is going to have its toll on the economy. So this is a very, very vital point, and this is something that our lawmaker, our policy makers should give attention to. This is point number one. Now let me get into another very interesting point, which is again raised by this article in Wire. It says that while one aspect is more workers have fallen out of labor force, what is also worrisome is many of those active in labor force have seen a marked deterioration in the quality of their employment. For instance, the self-employed population in the labor force is now 53%. The self-employed are largely in the unorganized sector. And worse, of this large universe of the self-employment sector, more than 1/3 are unpaid workers who support the household enterprise. This is underemployment really, which is counted as employed. So now let me explain this. Till now, we understood LPR, labor force participative rate. We understood that. What are we saying? We are saying that, in an economy where laborers are employed or they are looking for work, they fall under the people who are potential employees, potential labor force. The people who are not employed and not looking for work falls under the so-called economically non-active population. Okay? It is not going to help the economy. They are non-active population. Okay. Now let's take that as is. Let's go to the next problem. The problem is, let us take, for instance, November's LPR rate, 40.15% according to CMI. 40.15% of people are working. They are your labor rate. They are your active, economically active population. Okay na? Now, in this 40.15% people, almost 53% of the people are self-employed. 53% of the people of 40.15%. Okay? Now, in this 53%, they say that 1/3 of this 53% population, 1/3 of this 53% population are either underpaid or not paid at all. They call themselves employed. They say that they are employed because they possibly are participating in their family business, or they are participating with their spouses, or they are participating in working. So they are employed. So like, for instance, there is a shop, the father runs the shop, the daughter works in the shop. But the daughter is not paid to work in that shop. But is she employed? She shows herself as employed. So that's another worry. While you have a large percentage of people, large percentage of population which are neither working nor looking for a job, and you also have a fairly good percentage of people who claim to be working, who are employed, but they are not paid. This is what they call as underemployment. So that too is a problem that we are facing. At one end, you have LPR, another end, you have underemployment. The point that I was trying to make is our policymakers should be well aware of these problems, because these are problems that needs to be corrected if our economy has to be back on rails. These are problems that needs to be corrected, and mind you, here I will not blame a single political party or a current dispensation. I'll tell you why I will not blame, because the labor participation, women's participation in labor force in India has never been good. So it is not that I will say all of this happened now and all that, but yeah, now also nothing seems to be changing. In fact, things seems to be deteriorating. That is a fact. That our policymakers should ensure that women should be encouraged to participate. If women participation is more, then our LPR will go up. Our LPR rate will go up. So that's the first thing. And second thing is something that the policymakers need to focus on is this underemployment bit. Just by putting figures and therefore sitting tight saying that, okay, so many people are employed, that doesn't solve our economic problem. Our economy will only bounce back if you ensure that the people who are termed as employed are even paid. They generate and consume and spend money. That's when the economy will function. That's when the economy will bounce back. So this is the problem I wanted to talk to you about. This is the subject I wanted to talk to you about today. And till I see you next time, Namaskar.